welcome back to my channel, and I will be discussing to you this time the recurring process of accounting, the journalizing, posting and trial balance preparation. Let me first present to you the two types of books of accounts. We have the ledger and the journal. What is the ledger? A ledger is a classified record of accounts showing the respective balances, and we call this one the book of final entry. While the journal is called the book of original entry. Why? Because this is the very first book wherein we are recording the business transactions and events. The journalizing is the act of recording business transactions in the journal. The journal looks like this one, and we are using a two money column here. This is the money columns. Okay, journalizing is the very first step of accounting process after we made the transaction analysis. The entry that is prepared is called the journal entry, and we have two types. It may be simple or compound journal entry. A simple journal entry is that it has one debit item with only one debit amount, of course, and one credit item with a credit amount. While the compound journal entry is an entry that may have one debit item and two or more credit items, or two or more debit items and one credit item, or maybe have two or more items on both sides. Please take note that in our recording in the general journal or journal, it is done in chronological way. This is our problem. We have here attorney opinion who opened a modern barber shop with a business name Macho Barber Shop on May 3, 2021. We're also given here a 1 month completed transactions with the chart of accounts or with the list of account titles. Please take note that if you're given like this, all you have to do is to analyze the transactions and determine what would be the appropriate account title to be used in recording such transaction in our books of accounts. So let us analyze our first transaction dated May 3. It states that Mr. Opinion deposited the cash amounting to 800,000, representing his initial investment. So let us break down this transaction to determine the value received or the debit and the value parted with or the credit. And also, the rules of debit and credit will help us in the preparation of our journal entry. So here, in the perception of the business, it deposited cash, so therefore it received cash, so the asset increases because cash is an example of the accounting element asset. Following the rule of debit and credit, to increase the asset, we must debit it. On the other hand, initial investment is part of the accounting element owner's equity. Okay, it increases, therefore it must be credited. After we successfully made the transaction analysis, we are now ready to choose among the given account titles to determine the appropriate account title to be used in the recording of our business transactions. For the debit, it is cash. So this is an asset, so go to the asset column. Here we have only cash in bank. So therefore, we have to use cash in bank as our debit. But before anything else, let me share to you the technique of journalizing. You can see here that we have here how many columns. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, but we have too many columns as what I mentioned a while ago. The first one is for the date, followed by the particulars. Other textbook use here account titles and explanation, and others use description. Either of the three is okay. So let's continue. We have the debit and the credit. F stands for the page number. In this presentation, it is omitted here. While the JG01, this represents the page number of our journal. So, we're now ready to record our journal entry in the journal. So, first is the date of the transaction. It is May 3, 2021. So, here we have the year, and next is the month and the date. So, that's how we do it. How about the debit account title? All you have to do is enter at the extreme left at the margin of the particulars. While the debit amount, it is written aligned with the debit account title, of course under the debit column. Please take note that if you are using the too many columns journal, you don't need to write a comma okay, because this represents the money value. All right. How about the credit item? Okay, it must be indented on the second line. Okay, indented from the debit line. Okay, and of course the amount written along or with the same line under the credit column. And the explanation is indented the same from the credit item or credit account. So this is the journal entry. Okay, and this is an example of simple journal entry. Why? Because it has only one debit account title or one debit item and only one credit account. Alright, let's move on May 4 transaction. May 4 transaction states that we purchased aircon units and barber's chair at 500,000. In the perspective of the business, of course, the value received is what we purchased. That is the aircon units and barber's chair. And aircon and barber's chair is an asset. So since that is the value received, therefore asset increases. So it must be debited. On the other hand, in exchange of these items or the aircon units and barber's chair, of course we must paid it something, or we have the value parted with in exchange of this, and this is by paying a down payment of 300,000, and we have still a balance of how much? 200,000. How we get 200,000? That is the amount or the cost of what we purchased, 500, less the partial payment or down payment of 300. Therefore, we have still a payable or liability amounting to 200,000 pesos. So, balance payable. Payable connotes a liability, so it increases our liability following the rule of debits and credits. To increase our liability, it must be credited. After we successfully analyze the transaction, we have to choose the appropriate account title to be used in recording this transaction. For the debit, this is aircon and barber's chair. Take a look under the assets column here in the chart of accounts. The most appropriate one is here, the shop, furniture, and fixtures. Therefore, our entry would be debit to shop, furniture, and fixtures. The amount is 500,000. And we have a credit of cash in bank, 300,000. To make it balance, we have still one. Here, the liability. So go to the chart of accounts, only one, we have accounts payable. What is an accounts payable? It is a verbal obligation to pay to someone we owed. So that is accounts payable. And in addition, if it is evidenced by a note, we must use notes payable. Just an idea. So additional account is the credit of accounts payable with the amount of 200,000. And of course, please don't forget for the explanation. What you can observe here is we have one debit item and two credit items. This is an example of compound journal entry. Please take note in the posting of our journal entries in the journal. Okay, we leave one space here before we write our next journal entry. Is it clear now? Let's try to move on by analyzing our May 5 transaction. It's almost similar with May 4 wherein we purchase something and this time there's no down payment, it's only on account. Okay, so this has something to do with the two accounting elements. There is an increase of our asset, so it must be debited, and there is an increase of our liability account because on account indicates payable, and the only payable here is only accounts payable, like what we did in on May 4 transaction. So therefore, our entry would be, of course, again, you leave one space from the explanation and you write the date here, that is May 5. No need to write again the month, so all just only the 5, okay? And the debit account title. Here, this is our debit. Go to the chart of accounts. The most appropriate one still the same. So shop, furniture, and fixtures. The amount is 130,000. And the value parted with or the credit, it's the liability account. So that is accounts payable. You indent that one. Okay, so what you can observe is that all credit items were aligned as well as the explanation, right? So, of course, you have to write that one. Okay, let's move on May 6. Okay, it's almost the same. We bought something, the business bought shop supplies this time. So, shop supplies. This is the most appropriate one. So, there is an increase in liability. So, therefore, our entry would look like this. Alright. Now, let's move on May 7. We're in here. There is an increase in our expense account when we paid building rental. So, expense has a normal balance of debit, so to increase it, you have to debit it. On the other hand, when we paid, so we credit cash. Cash in an asset account, so it decreases when we paid cash. Okay, so therefore, it must be credited. So again, choose among the given account titles to determine the appropriate account title to be used in recording such transaction. So our entry would look like this. Alright, let's move on. May 8. It's similar to May 7 transaction. We paid by this time business permits. Okay, business permits must fall under the taxes and licenses. So our entry would look like this. Okay, May 9, it is a new transaction. Here we earned an income for the week. We have received cash of 50,000 on account 3,500. Please take note that if you're reading a business transaction that involves an income or revenue, okay, and you have here on account, meaning to say the service or revenue here is on account and it indicates receivable, which means to be collected later. So that is an asset account and we increase it. Therefore, following the rule of debits and credits, to increase an asset, you must debit it. So that is our value received. On the other hand, income is what we parted with. So income or the rendered services is an part of accounting element revenues and the normal balance is credit since it increases, therefore that would be our credit. So our entry would be on May 9, we debited cash in bank for 50,000, debit accounts receivable, okay, 3,500, and of course the value parted with service income or revenue 53,500, and please don't forget again for the explanation. I do hope that you're learning along the way while I'm presenting to you the journal entries. Let's move on. On May 18. Okay, we're in here. We're already in page 2. That's why it's JG02. So let us analyze May 18 transaction. The business owner here withdrew cash of 10,000 for the purpose of his personal use. So again, remember our acronym, ALODRE. And remember our expanded accounting equation. We have ADE, LER, wherein ADE, normal balance is debit, and D represents our, or it is an acronym of our drawing account. Therefore, drawing has a normal balance of debits. So to increase it, since there is a withdrawal, you must debit it. Therefore, our debit would be, we have to use the given account title. So debit our opinion drawing, the amount is 10,000 and you're going to credit cash in bank. Okay, 10,000 of course for the explanation. So meaning to say class, that in every drawing transaction, this is our pro forma entry. Always debit drawing account and credit cash in bank if the withdrawal is through cash. If it is other asset account, therefore you have to credit the appropriate account. Maybe you'll ask me, what is my meaning when I state that you have to credit other appropriate account? Take for example, if the withdrawal is through an inventory, let's say this is a merchandise inventory, therefore you have to credit merchandise inventory, alright? That is so advanced. Let's move on. May 19 transaction is just the same with our May 9 transaction. So this is our entry. Alright. Let's move on. May 20 transaction. Here, on May 20, what happened? We paid the account. Therefore, we parted with a cash because we paid the account. So, our entry would be, since there is a decrease of our account or our payable or our liability with lane factoranan from May 6 transaction, therefore our debit would be a decrease of liability account. So, that is debit of accounts payable, rather, the amount is 35,000 and we credit cash in bank, the value parted with of 35,000. Of course, the explanation. So, I am always reiterating that the rules of debit and credit rather must be clearly understood, because that will serve as a guide in the preparation of our journal entries. All you have to do is to master the normal balances of each accounting element so that you can easily determine what should be debited or what should be credited. Again, the normal balance of accounting elements are there, the assets, drawing, and expenses, it's debit. While on the right side, the LUR, the liabilities, owner's equity, and the revenue, the normal balance is credit. So that is the important one. Let's move on May 25. Here, we collected the account. So it's we collected the account. Therefore, we receive a cash because we collected the account. How much? 3,500. For what transaction? For service rendered on May 9. So this is the account. So therefore, there is a decrease in our on our receivable account. So therefore, we have to credit the receivable account. If you were asked what is the effect in our accounting equation, A equals L plus OA, the answer is 0. Why? Because both of these account title is an asset account. So there is an increase in cash, 3.5. There is also a decrease in asset in the account of accounts receivable, 3.5. Therefore, there is 0 effect in our accounting equation. Nor, there is no effect in our total assets. Get it? May 29. It states here that we paid our account, so it's just similar with our May 20 transaction. So our entry would be like this. May 30, almost same transaction with May 9, rather May 7 and 8, we paid something. So you just select the appropriate account title. So this is salaries expense, so our entry would look like this. Alright, we successfully answered the requirement number 1, prepare journal entries. Now, we are ready to move on to the next accounting process, which is depositing to the ledger or to the T accounts. How to do it? All you have to do is have a guide, this one, the chart of accounts. So you make a big letter T here, and this letter T is called the T account. Okay, we have a T component here. On the top, it must be our account title. Here is our debit side or the left side, and this one is the credit side. So you count how many account titles do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So we have 12, so you have to prepare 12 T accounts. It must be look like that. Alright, after that, you have to write the account titles to respective T accounts. So for example, first is the cash in bank. So it must look like this. To prepare the T accounts or to write the account titles, it must be done according to the sequence of our accounting elements, all'ordine. So all assets must be written first in our T account. So we have like that one. So the rest will follow. So that's it. So we successfully now prepared the format of our ledgers. Now we are ready in depositing to the T accounts. How to do it? With reference to our prepared journal entries as posted in our journal, so all you have to do is to take a look in our first journal entry dated May 3. You have there the first debit account title of cash in bank. So go to the T account cash in bank. So it is posted in the debit account, so you do it like this way. Okay, you simply transfer here to this account cash in bank. Alright? To To understand it more, let's move on to the credit account title or to the credit item. Here, we read here, our opinion capital. Look for the T account of capital. Here you are. So since it is posted in the credit side, so you post it the same in the credit side. You write the date, of course, the amount. Alright? Let's move on. May 4. Shop Furniture and Fixtures. So this is the account. So since it is debited, so therefore you post it in the debit side. Let's continue. Cash in bank, credit. So go to cash in bank, credit. Accounts payable, credit. Go to accounts payable, credit. And the rest will just follow. Okay. So this must be the picture. Alright. After which, when everything is posted in the T account, now we are ready to proceed to the next one, the footing stage. All you have to do is to write a single line at the last figure in our T account, like this one. Single line, single line, single line, and okay. Alright. Next thing to do is to sum up or to add all debits and all credits. For example, for the cash in bank, okay, so the total of this is 893,500. So the process is now footing, F-O-O-T, footing. So the credits, the total credit is 475,500. And after which is you put again a single line and you have to calculate for the difference. So that difference would be 418 and it is written under the left side or debit side. Why? Because our total debit is greater than our total credit. We call this balance as debit balance. Alright, let's continue. Here 630. Therefore, to read this one, we have Shop Furniture and Fixtures debit balance of 630,000. Let's move on. For the service income, the total is 93,500. Therefore, the type of balance that we have is credit balance of 93,500. Why? Because the total credit is greater than the total debit and we have no zero amount of our debit here. Now, let's move on. How about here the accounts receivable? Here, we have here the accounts payable. Here, the total credit is 330. The total debit is 100. Therefore, we have a balance of how much? 230. We have a credit balance of 230. And lastly, for the accounts receivable, so same totals. So this is called closed account. Why? Because total debit is equal to the total credit. Okay? So, or this is in balance. Now, we successfully post our journal entries in the T accounts. Now, we are ready to prepare the trial balance. Based on the balances rather in our T accounts, if you can remember in my introduction when I showed to you the books of accounts, we have the ledger. I said that the ledger is, it shows the respective balances of each account. So this is what I mean. Respective balances. Each account has a respective or own balances. This will be used later in the preparation of trial balance to complete the requirement. The last one is the preparation of trial balance. So to do that one, first thing to do is to write the name of the business, which is Macho Barber Shop, and not attorney opinion, okay? It must be the name of the business. Next is the type of the report we are preparing, that is the trial balance. Next is the period, May 31, 2021, and the next line is this. You leave a few space here, then you write the account, or you may write account titles or accounts, and the debit here and the credit. And you have to list all the accounts with the open balances. Open balances is that like this one. This one. Okay. So therefore, for the cash, it is written under the debit because the balance is debit. We have a debit balance here. How about the next one? The accounts receivable. It is 0. Therefore, is there a need to write that one? No. Next is the shop supplies inventory, 35,000. Next asset account is the shop furniture and fixtures, debit balance of 630. So that's it. Next one, no more asset. We have here the payable. Being the first entry, you have to write the sign of the currency, and the rest will follow. It looks like this. And since it ends the balance of our T accounts or our ledger, the last entry would be the taxes and licenses, so you must write a single line there. And you have to total the debit and credit and double roll it for the finality of figure. Okay, so this is a trial balance. As you can see, it is to test whether the total debit is equal to the total credit. So this is the totals. It is balance. So that ends the presentation or the answer of our activity of our problem. Hope that you're learning a lot through this presentation. Thank you so much and see you soon in my next tutorial video, the next answer of your activity for week number 4. Bye!